I want to welcome everyone here tonight. It's so fun to see so many friends gathering together from years past and just freshly met. It's a fun night. Oh, I'm going to just take a minute and get a little bit centered. I just got excited seeing some of the people that have come in here because they mean so much to me. And I want to acknowledge that this is a really great opportunity to come together and to share some really new information that not a lot of people are aware of. Let me pause again and make sure everybody knows who I am. I'm Gloria Lybecker, and I'm located just west of Spokane, Washington. And I've been a therapist for many years, for, gosh, I guess it's over 20 years now, so I'm dating myself. And in my field of, my scope of practice, I met a lot of different people and a lot of different animals that have had a lot of different kinds of needs. And when I had gone through my first surgery last summer, I had the blessing to be reached out to by Marian. And I met an individual that really cared. I hadn't ever really met this woman before. She reached out to me on social media, and it wasn't even a platform that I visited very often, Alignable. But she was so authentic in her communication. She was just interested and curious about what I did and who I was and what I found interesting. And we just had a nice, back and forth. What impressed me is how she stayed in relationship with me. There's not a lot of people that I have found in my life that really genuinely reach out because they are interested in me, or they're interested in just me as a person, not from what I could give them or what I could be or do. And so that really touched me. But she asked me if I'd ever heard of redox signaling, and I had not. So she sent me some information, and I had a fun time. I was kind of laid up, so I had a fun time getting to watch a lot of different videos and learn a lot about a lot of different people that I'd never met. And now it's been about 7 months later, and I'm so pleased to say I've met so many of those people. And what is impressive is they're all just as authentic as Marian has been in my life. Marian has helped me along by staying in relationship with me, sharing her own experiences, answering questions when I wasn't sure where to go or what to do. But what's really impressed me even more is how this company has had such integrity and how they've prioritized the people over the product, because the product stands for itself. It has a lot of science that backs it up, more than I can comprehend, but I'm grateful to know there's a lot of medical practitioners or people in the medical field that can help us to understand things that might be a little beyond what we've learned. And I'm also really thrilled to have been having people join me on my journey to learn more about this amazing product, and also to learn how to share it with more people from my heart. And so with that, I would really like to share my screen. So let me see if I got this down to where I can do it with a little bit more ease than some days past. And what's my password? By introducing the first person that I got to bring on board, my good friend and colleague, Ruth Crea. And Ruth, can I invite you to unmute yourself?
So hi, I'm Ruth Crea, and I have a background in education. After my boys were born, I transitioned to staying home with them and later homeschooling. And during this time, I experienced some trauma, and my world became quite small for some time. And over the years, I explored several treatment modalities which were specialized for trauma, and I've experienced much healing, for which I'm grateful. Yet being introduced to Redox this last summer has opened up my world in a whole new way for me. I find I'm able to make connections with aspects of my trauma that were not accessible before. It has not been an easy journey, but each step of the way, I feel more alive, more clear, and much more present. I no longer feel all alone, and I can see a bright future with Redox and my new Asea family, sharing this powerful supplement with others.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm so glad you're here partnering with me on this journey. Now I'd like to invite you to join me as we watch a video that shares a little bit more about this biotech company that's developed and is really changing the face of health on a global level. Oops, I think I'm going to the wrong video here. Maybe not. I'll come back. You know, I just want to say that each time I get to present something, I get to discover how I can do a redo and just keep moving on. So we'll click below to start. Here we go. Okay, I'll take another breath and I'll just pause and I'll just wait for my internet to catch up with me. Here we go.
I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I took a degree from the University of Utah, managed some stores for Safeway, and then ended
Apologize for the slowness of my internet today.
up going to work for General Foods Corporation. I was asked to sit on the board of a small company that had been working on a technology for about 15 years. Numerous patents, a lot of research, and they were actually producing a product using salt and water. And when they told me that, they wanted me to go on their board. I said, well, you're going to have to convince me that this is real. How can you produce something from salt and water? And they said, we have a lot of research, extensive research, $10 or $15 million worth of research.
Virtus agreed to join the board of directors.
So I went to the first board meeting and found out that they were flat out of money. They were $1 million in debt. We said, let's see if we can help them find money. We tried for about 90 days, could not. Eventually, the company folded, and they actually merged it with another company, an energy company. And when that happened, that company started selling off assets. And I said, I am going to put a group of investors together, and I'm going to take a run at the company. And over the course of a year, we discovered what the product was and why it worked. We developed what's called the mechanism of action.
They discovered the product was based on redox biochemistry, a new field of science that emerged near the beginning of the 21st century. Redox signaling is a function central to all forms of life. Redox signaling molecules are created within every cell of the body and are vital to the immune system and to cellular repair and replace mechanisms. As one gets older, the body's ability to make these molecules decreases, a function of aging. The product provided a replenishing source of the exact redox signaling.
I think my internet needs some redox molecules.
I turned off my video in case it helps.
Thank you.
Molecules the body creates, and in the same balance, enhancing cellular health. Knowing the product's shelf life was essential, Virtus challenged a team of researchers, including Dr. Gary Samuelson, to find a way to stabilize the product.
And finally, after months, he finally came in and said, I think I've got the product stabilized. And we started testing it and found out that he had in fact stabilized the product.
After stabilization had been achieved, Vertus met with a group of university scientists.
This is stabilized redox signaling molecules, both positive and negative molecules in the same bottle, stabilized. And they said, how in the world did you do this? So one of the big breakthroughs is the fact that we can stabilize molecules that you're not supposed to be able to do that. The molecules in Asea are supposed to be fleeting. They should all return to salt and water in just a matter of minutes, and they don't. So we decided to find 40 people and create kind of a focus group, and we started giving it to them. We did that for about 2 months, and we said, let's go out and find out where we are with these 40 people. So when we went out and contacted them, we found out that the 40 people had turned into 135, and the product had been shipped to 20 different countries. But in the meantime, we had contacted a friend, and he was running a very big pharmaceutical company in New Jersey, about $10–11 billion. And he finally agreed to send a group of people out and spend some time with us and see what we had come up with. So 4 people flew out on a plane. We spread out all of the research that we had out on a table. They started getting on the phone about noon back east, and they kept doing that, and about 2 o'clock they walked in the room and said, okay, we're convinced you've got something here, and it's significant enough that we will write you a check big enough that you won't want to talk to anybody else. And I said, what's the catch? And they said, you've got to shut it down. And I said, shut what down? And they said, you've got 135 people on this product right now, shut it down. People have problems all the time, and they deal with them as best they can. You're going to have to walk away. And that kind of took us back a little bit. In fact, I said, that seems a little harsh to me. And they said, you want to work with us, you walk away.
Asea LLC opened its doors for business in July 2009, with just a handful of independent associates. Today, there are tens of thousands, and their ranks are growing exponentially every month. In 2012, the company announced its entry into Europe, the first of many international steps to come.
My wife questions why I'm doing this. She said, you've retired more than once, and it's time for you to join me, and let's enjoy the golden years, if you will. But recently, a young lady came up, and she broke down and started sobbing. And she had a health challenge in her family that was really severe, and she was introduced to Asea. And because of what Asea did, she was just grateful. So I find it hard to talk about, but that's a reason.
Take a moment right before you.
As I was watching the video, it made me think of the amazing people that I have been introduced to and met through Asea. Vertus, we saw in the video, most brilliant businessman, one of the top strategists in the world. And when I met him, all I saw was heart. He cared about all the people he met. He was excited like a kid and wanted to know what had Asea done for each of us. Another amazing man was Dr. Philippe. I first saw him through Zoom, and I kind of sat back in awe. I mean, this man is brilliant. He is a doctor and has, well, you'll learn as he shares, just one of the top doctors in his field of neurokinetic health. And then as I got to know him, he's so humble, and he's just a regular guy that you want to have as your best friend. And I just want to welcome you, Dr. Philippe. Thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Thank you, Marian. And I share what you just said is totally mutual. And I discovered the Asea family no far back down near a year, not even a year now. That was at the end of March last year. After several months of pounding advice and warm recommendation by one of our common friends, Marian Sides, who I know for over a quarter of a century in the aerospace medical field. When I went through the law, which turned out as a black hole in which I was totally incapacitated out of totally being burnt out. So, I was a ghost of myself, and never happened before. I have been running very successfully 4 careers side by side in the medical field, military and civilian areas, and working with adjuncts as well, and in my own company as well. So serving in many ways, and just thriving from action and results. And well, I found myself like a humble whistler overrun by a landslide, same field. And I didn't know how to get out. And the more I waited to follow Marian's advice, the worse I became. I tried everything I knew that worked in the past. Nothing was working. I was really at the end of the rope. And I was wondering what would happen. Through 2020, that was a dark year I'm talking about, 3 times I felt deeply that I wouldn't see the end of the year, the kind of a premise of the final disaster. And I didn't know what to do. And after still, sluggishing and dwelling a few 4 months, in March, I made a decision to dive in a swimming pool and follow the advice. And that was the best thing I ever did, because within less than a month, I was back to over half of what I was in my best years ever. And then now, 11 months later, I feel near the top of what I can be capable of, and everything is back. So I couldn't believe it at first. I believed it because I was told so many stories, and I made a little bit of diligence before on the way, looking at the people behind the company itself, the results. I am result-driven. I have been result-driven all my life as a doc. And it was quite an adventure, along with an experience that without equal. I have flown jets. I have served as an astronaut. I have been out there. But I never experienced internally what I have experienced with these redox molecules, which were a total discovery for me, because I am not a microbiologist. I am not a molecular biologist. I am not a biochemist. I rather hated that during my medical school, preferring physics over chemistry. Well, I'm totally reconciled now with that domain, and I became a ball of fire about learning more, meeting wonderful people. I'm talking about Dr. Dick Walker. I'm talking about Dr. Jerry White. I'm talking about Dr. Lee Osler and many others. And people sitting on the advisory board for the company Asea are all personally the best in their own field. Etc. The list is too long to name them by one, but I apologize to those who don't hear their name, but it's out of lack of time. But they are all equal in my heart. And this is amazing. So I became, I would say, an apostle about this not only it's not belief-based, it's evidence-based. It is history-based. 6 Nobel Prizes have been paving the way of this research since 1998, to just 2 years ago, 2019. And there is no field in biomedical sciences that have been crowned 6 times, a couple of years apart, basically 2 or 3 years apart, whether 4 times from in the field of medicine and physiology and 2 times in the field of chemistry. So that tells you that there cannot be a more hardcore science than that. And yes, I am at everyone's disposal. If you want a little lecture once in a while, if you have hard time to sleep, I can pop up on your screen and I'm going to make you sleep within a few minutes because I am enthused by the material. And the problem is I may not fall asleep myself because I'm getting excited about that. So this is contagious, you know, and the people like Alan Noble, the founders, Verdis and Tyler, have been those people who brought me on board, besides the science itself, and besides the testimonials, numerous testimonials I've been listening to and sharing, learning about, I would say, in so different fields of medicine. And in particular, in my field of the medicine, I am a traumatologist. And when I heard Ruth sharing her story, I understand. Sometimes we stay stuck because we are out of reach of the means of the best. And this is nobody's fault. It's just lack of knowledge. It's just not knowing what it is. And for me, redox molecules and redox phenomenology, as I call it, has been a missing link in my own field. So I'm not a guesser. So I was sharing with patients, for example, that I couldn't explain, but it was making sense of, going through a dotted line from A, B, C through the rest, but I was unable to explain how, and I was using big words like, cellular communication. I was pretty close, but I didn't know anything about redox phenomenon, and I was unable to be specific as I am now. So I feel blessed. I feel encouraged in my own things. And it is a mutual confirmation. What I knew in my own expertise validates totally redox molecules as I know them and as we know that. But also redox molecules has validated my own model. So I have a gratitude without limits for those who identify redox from not only from the Nobel Prize teams, but from the Asea scientific team, who has been actually making up this fit in science, applied science, and biotechnology, research and development. Those people are unique. We are so lucky to have met them in our lifetime. I feel it is God's given guidance here. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. I have so much. I can't keep you awake the whole night if you wish. It's okay with me, but I have lots to share. And I will never skip any opportunity to talk for a few minutes or a few hours. No, I exaggerate, but you see what I mean. We have, like anyone, we have lots to share. Yeah. So I'm grateful to you for inviting me tonight.
Thank you, Philippe. And if you will stay aboard, I'm sure there's going to be people who have questions, but before we open it to questions, I want to introduce another famous person in Asea. Jerry White has introduced it to a few people and then a few more people who have introduced it. And he has thousands of people all over the world that want to give him a hug and say thank you because of how it's changed all our lives. So, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Marian. We've been close for a long time, and so what I wanted to do was to pass on some what ifs to all of you. This is a real sort of slap in the side of the head to us who are in the medical field. Wow, it's a whole new way of looking at how life works. This magical thing called life that can literally repair itself consistently over the course of our lifetime. So the big conundrum was, why does it slow down in the repair? Why does it start to overlap on some of the things that you suffer from and eventually cause aging? I want you to all real hard. Do you know anyone who's aging? Seems to be a pandemic of that stuff. And because what's very interesting is that we still have the tools, the cells that we had when we were very young. In fact, from the very first moment of conception, you have the same DNA in every cell that's in your body. We're just now learning the language that it uses to talk about, are we good? Do we need to fix something? How do we relate with the cells around us? That has to go on every second of every day. And all the pieces and parts of the cell have to talk to themselves every second of every day. And if that communication gets fuzzy or loses volume, and Marian says, we're working in the cell together, and she yells out, duck. And I turn to her and go, what? I get smacked. And so if we don't get the signals down, we're pretty tough. And then Gloria and I are out trying to set up one of those bounce castles for kids to have, the afternoon. And in this one, we have to put 4 posts together to get the thing to go up in the right direction. And so if Gloria can, I said, now hold that one on the left side over there. So she holds that one up, the right side sags. And then I say, no, run over there and get the other one. We have to have more departments working together to get some of this stuff done. And if we can't communicate, it's like trying to put a transaxle in a Volkswagen. It's just you push on one side and the other side drops. You go to the other side, put on that side, and the other side drops. You could be back there playing teeter-totter for your whole life. And your cells begin to start to get confused in their operations. And all we have to do is remind them. So with that, we've got something that's so safe that it was determined it was approximately as harmful as a terry cloth beach robe. Now I want you all to go get a terry cloth beach robe, like a towel made, just like a beach robe made out of a towel, and put it on and see if you can hurt yourself with it. It really can't harm you. So with that being the case, we all of a sudden start out, it has like a bunch of uses. It can keep you from being immodest at times. It can keep you warm. It can make you feel kind of yummy and cozy, and can dry you off after. I mean, it's got all kinds of uses. All of these uses from a single product, and that product that we're bringing to the table is in a liquid form that you can breathe. You can put it in your eyes. You can apply it topically. You can use it in multiple different ways, and it's really very simple for people to use. And if it has the ability for each of the cells to get their bearings, to make comparisons, to make corrections, to fix itself, now what? Well, what we do is we find people tell stories. And you heard some amazing stories today, but we've got tens of hundreds of thousands of stories that you can look into to really help yourself understand. And then you saw in the video where the founder said, I'm going to take this outside of the medical realm and get it to the hands of the people. Well, guess what? We're people. And what we need to do more than anything else in this world today is to come together. We have to learn to use electronics to help us with efficiency, but not to draw us apart. We need to learn to talk to other people and what are their perceptions. And when we do, we can figure out how to get many, many things done. In this case, they're asking us to learn to distribute this technology to people that you love and care about. And if we make an army of people that are doing that, then we can keep the costs down dramatically, and we can get it to people who need it. Well, many of us are driven by this compassion. You can feel it in this group. It's just overwhelming compassion for human beings. Not forceful, not a bunch of type A's trying to make a huge living off of doing it. But you know what happens is that there's so much payback that comes in the qualities of life. So we offer several things. One of those things is to be aware, hang around, learn, be excited that I was reading it just the other day. This is really, really interesting to me. Did you know that approximately 80%, what did I see? It was 80% of the things that are seen by the medical community are related to aging and deterioration and overuse and environmental. You know, all those things kind of pile up together. In fact, all of those things we can modify and change and improve 80%. And only, and then if we look at it and we say that another 10% are mental difficulties and stresses. So about 90% of the things that we are suffering from, we could correct. And look at how much money we put into the other 10%, which was infectious disease. How big a horizon then is it for those who have chronic ailments and sicknesses for which the system was not designed to work? So if we crack into this kind of a space, that's the second option, is to just make a massive difference in how gracefully we age, how well we can do things like Marian Palmer. You know, she's seen 7 decades. You're not supposed to say that, but here's the thing. She and her husband walk the Pacific Crest or Trail. Isn't that what it's called, Marian?
Yep.
And they're been in every Bloomsday in Spokane. That's a 7.5 mile run. Why do some people have the ability to live a life like that? And there's a lot of people in their late 50s and early 60s that are completely incapacitated. Much of it has to do with lifestyle, environment, and a lack of redox signaling. So think of the horizons, think of the potential. If you think about the distribution of that, they've asked us to get it to the people through people who care about other people. It's fascinating. So the third thing people will use it for is animals. And Gloria alluded to animals early on. We find that literally it's anything that has cells will benefit because all the cells operate the same way, even down to the single-celled bacteria in your gut. Another area is for people who just want to look as good as they can. So sometimes they can be still heard. You might have read some stories or seen some movies about in antiquity, people admired people with age and experience and treated them with great deference. Today, did you know that sometimes they just dismiss people who look older? So some people want to stay looking younger, and this will do that in spades. A group of people are athletic. My wife is, she makes me feel guilty all the time because I can't keep up with the exercises she's doing every day. But at 63, where she was unable to really run 3 blocks when she first started a few years ago, she now is using Asea to a remarkable end. She can now run a marathon at the end of a 112-mile bike race and a 2.5-mile swim, and is competing in Ironman competitions at 63 years old. To live maximally well above and beyond what regular folks are, why not go there? Why would we do in medicine, or what medicine does, which is just once you get past the symptoms, you're probably good. Why not live exceptional for these days the Lord's have given us? And then there's another group of people that says, I love to learn, and I and I get it. Let's distribute this to as many people as we can so that you can make the biggest possible difference while you're here on this planet, that you can grow personally and grow in how much you affect people. Ruth has been one of those people that has grown so much that I get inspired by her every time she's on here. I brag about her every week when she's on here, just because of who she's grown into through the process of being around one another. And finally, there's a group of people that just recognize opportunity. And for some, that means that they want to help get it out there, but they'd love to have some return that allows them to get paid maybe a few dollars here and there, and they can cover the cost of their health. Another group will want to maybe establish a buffer. You think about all the people who are working in areas where they're not for sure going to keep working if mandates come out. Mandates is a new thing within our societies where you can actually lose your work because you choose not to align with mandates. So wouldn't it be great to have the ability to be building a sort of a side income, and for some of those people to just say, you know what, if this is going to be the next big hot thing, I don't want to miss it. So we provide you with all of those. The first one is just try some. And for those who are experimental, get some and then run over somebody's foot, push them down the stairs, or burn them with a cookie sheet and try it and see if it works. And well, you could actually be nice too and try and see if it works. And then there's a last group that just says, no, you know what? I want the whole bag. I want to become more. So our call letters are kind of believe, belong, and become. And as we join together, we're making the biggest possible difference we can while literally making a living. And for many of us, that allows us a chance to match the current income that we had when we were working. Well, shoot, I guarantee you that would take most people's stress down a notch or two. And imagine putting more time into the things that you know to be more valuable. So with that, I wanted to thank you for being with us all tonight. You can see these products and technologies. You saw a few of them. It's just the liquid. There's some nutrition that goes along with these concepts. And that's a kind of a further tale we can get into later, but I'm going to pass it back to you ladies and it kind of admonish all of us. Why don't we all get together? Because we're a mighty army when we do. All right, back to you. You're on mute, Marian.
Thank you, Jerry, for your words of wisdom. So glad to have you here with us again. What I'd like to be able to do now is to open it up. If there's any questions that you could ask of Jerry or of Dr. Philippe. So you can unmute yourself and ask questions if you have some.
Dr. Philippe, I know you're sharing this with many people. Are you able to share it with people in your practice as well?
Yes, I have attempted that. And I have observed that it reflects totally the spectrum of humanity. Some understand it, some are wary about it, and some decide it's not for them. Mm-hmm. So you have the same span of what we see in the general population.
For those who have decided to try it, has that really boosted or made a difference?
It made a huge difference, and that is a knowledge. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and in record times, actually.
Wouldn't you agree, Doctor? Wouldn't you agree that this only works on the most intelligent people?
No. No. I think it's beyond the brain.
And are there any specific cases that were kind of surprising to you where people improved?
Yeah, case in particular where nothing would respond, everything was done, including from my end. And sometimes I hit the wall with things which were already kind of advanced compared to the mainstream. But even there, sometimes, we don't have all the solutions. And I had a few people who were willing to give it a try, and it changed them, it changed the course of their state, definitely, and relatively rapidly. Yeah.
So are most of
Again,
your patients trauma patients? Is that what I'm understanding?
Trauma, yes. I am a traumatologist, so I see trauma in first place, and I specialize in severe chronic incapacitations. So basically everything left behind, left behind by the system. So regardless whether it is mainstream or alternative, etc. So I became, into being a specialist in this type of thing. But trauma, everyone gets traumatized. So you have sometimes trauma only on a healthy terrain, and then you have people who have illnesses or disease or a combination of both, and they get traumatized as well. So it's a big mix, basically. In any case, it is the situations where nothing is done and can be done, and usually it is, I love you, but we try the best, but there is no really anything we can do for you. Those are the typical patients I see. And these patients have been tremendously helped with Redox molecules. Absolutely, yes. They were particularly deficient in that, more than beyond what the thinkable. And but filling up, and it does the job. Absolutely, yeah.
So I see Beth
So it's
has
a
a question.
big.
Beth, did you have
Yes, I have a girlfriend from back in grade school that I just recently heard from her, and she was asking for prayers for her brother who has severe diabetes and basically can't feel his feet anymore, and the doctors were wanting to cut his legs, possibly both of them, off. And she said that he pretty much had gotten to this point because he was addicted to Mountain Dew. So over the years, he was drinking like 2 liters a day. And anyway, so that's the position that he's in right now. And I did hear today from him that they had done, they were checking for the infection in his lower legs, where they thought they were going to have to cut above it. And praise the Lord, answered to prayer, they couldn't find that infection. But so he was able to go home, but I would love to see him on this product. And just have a question. Do you think that he possibly could be pulled out of that?
Well, the first thing we have to do is to tell you that according to our mandate, we can't diagnose, treat, cure, heal, or treat or prevent any illness. And Asea does not do any of those things. According to the official word, your body does. What a surprise. And if your body can be assisted, your body's made 100% of cells. And so we ask this real simple question: does it have to do with cells?
Yeah.
And so if those cells have gone off track and they could be brought back to a point of understanding, was there any time in his life where those cells operated better than they're operating today?
Yes.
So those 2 simple answers can go a long way to helping you to understand that if there's a potential for help, let's do this. And then, of course, do everything your doctor tells you. And don't question. Well, no, actually, you have a part to play in your own health. And so I would make one other recommendation with people. That is, as you already mentioned, I think you were saying, don't do the do, right? According to the commercial, it's do the do, but we're going to say don't do the do. And that's called an environmental condition. That's something that can be changed. And in that process, I want you all to learn a new term today. I coined this in my practice. It's called carpenter syndrome. And it means that if you're trying to do something to get better, let's say you hit your thumb with a hammer, it heals a lot better if you quit hitting it with a hammer. So as you start to change in some ways with the cells communicating with each other to see what happens, which I think this probably won't make any, I got something in my, probably won't make, well, give it a try. And in the process, remove the hammer smacking. Take away those things that caused you to get in that position in the first place.
Right.
And increases hydration up to 3 quarts of water a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, go for it and see what happens.
Thank you.
I see Ruth is wanting to ask a question too.
I have a question. Has anybody had any success with people who have had negative side effects from the COVID vaccine?
We're not allowed to talk about that.
You haven't, but you can tell me if you've had any success with somebody.
No, according to the federal government, we're not allowed to talk about that subject. Of course not. What we do is we talk to each other, and as we talk to each other, people will have their own life experiences in certain ways. Perhaps we can guide you to have a chat with some people who have experienced some things, whatever you call it, and wherever you think you got it from. That's how people kind of get information across the backyard fence. But in general forum like this, then we just really want to make sure that we uphold all of the rights and privileges of those authorities that are over us.
Yeah, thank you. And Ruth Crea, did you have a question you were wanting to ask?
Yeah, I do. So one of the things that's happened, especially in the last 3 months, is that I've had a lot of trauma parts come up. And I have a really great therapist, and she helps me move through all of these things, but it's really been tough. And one of the things that she said is that I'm sharing things like I've never shared before, and I'm opening up in ways that I haven't before. But so my question, I guess, is what exactly is happening inside of my brain as I'm healing?
Regards to the redox molecules, that's what you're asking more
Yeah,
specifically.
in regards to the redox. Oh yeah, in regards to the redox molecules, because I've had like sound therapy and horse therapy and lots of different like energy medicine and lots of different processes. And the redox molecules are seeming to like wake up those trauma parts. And it's not just and it's really it's been quite painful, but I'm feeling more and more present as I'm using them and I'm going through this.
So the question would be, the answer would be an answer in principle. We are made up with cells, from brain to bone, from heart to liver, from guts to skin, you name it. Every single part of our cells is made up with cells, vessels, nerves, and so forth. So it is understandable that if you enable the bricks that make a wall to become the way they were put, to get them in a state they were when they were put to build that wall, regardless of time, guess what? Guess what happened?
It goes
Things
into
are different. Yeah. So it ties with functionality. Cells are performers and they enable function. And when we get impaired or we get low in energy, of course, the functionality is going down. So it is basically enabled by this comburant. I like this analogy. Comburant allow the carburant to be consumed properly to perform, talking about an engine, for example, but it is not consumable by itself. It will be used in a process, but it is not consumed in any fashion by the engine itself. So it is a kind of side cycle, which is necessary for the normal cycles to perform. So that is an answering principle, and you apply that everywhere in the three-dimensional being you are. And if it happens to affect control centers in the brain, which are also made up of cells, guess what? If the generals are waking up and the soldiers are waking up a little bit behind them or in the same time, everybody is going to work according to a functional hierarchy. And that is a good answering principle to what you want to understand. Does it help?
Yeah. So it's kind of having to rebuild parts of my brain back or make connections. No.
It is about cells. Consider that as a unit with which and into which the redox molecules are working. The science is very obvious about that, but because it is so essential and so universal, you may apply that rule in any sort of situation.
And think about it in this way too. And thank you, doctor, for that. Ruth, if you imagine if you go to where we live here in Spokane, down to Garland Avenue, they have the Garland Avenue Theater. You ever been there?
Mm-hmm.
And go there on a bright, sunny day. And after the movie's over, they actually have you walk out underneath the screen directly into the sunlight. Your eyes are taking in the movie and you're seeing the credits and it's dark and your eyes have accommodated to the darkness. And you walk outside and whap, it's like so bright, you almost have to close your eyes because it's too sensitive. It's now operating still. It's just now beginning to have to adjust for a more abundant set of inputs. And when you have trauma, mental trauma, oftentimes you push it back away from sight, kind of as a survival mechanism. And when you bring back those components of your normal being back into play, it's going to be any small sound, any small extra light, any stimulus can be oversensitive.
Oh.
And you have to wait for it to adopt and to adapt to that. And one other analogy to that would be if you sit on your foot and it goes to sleep, you cut off the blood supply and you go to stand up and there's nothing there and you don't trust it and you put it down and pretty quick it starts to tingle like mad. And every time you try to move it, that's the same thing where it's adjusted to this lack of input, this lack of nutrients. And as the nerves come back awake and begin to start to work with each other, they're just going to be overly sensitive. And so you're now then adjusting them, but you have way more to work with while you do.
Oh, that really makes a lot of sense. Because I've been like sensitive to like certain words and I'll just go down with those. So I'm excited to see how I'm going to be a year from now.
That's great.
Yep. Top of the class. I can feel it.
I see we have a question in the chat. Patty's asking, what benefits has Dr. Philippe seen with those battling depression and mood swings? Anything you can speak to?
Yes, I can help for that. This is just general, casual, and professional observation. Changes are always happening, always, in my experience. And I've seen a lot of them. Yeah.
And that your own personal story is very significant in that regard, because as robust as you guys can't believe this guy's resume. It's insane overall, and all the things that he's accomplished and the things that he has done and experienced in life. And even with all of that, let's change the words from depression to like Zig Ziglar said, it feels like somebody licked all the red off your candy. And so this is kind of one of those things that put the red back in your candy, right, Doc?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Mechanisms are kicking back. It's restoration. Yeah.
Restoration. Yep.
All right. Well, I want to honor our time that we have here together today, and just have one more pause to see if there's any questions anyone would like to ask. I'd like to make sure that I'm inviting everyone to meet with us. Well, I see you there, Terry. Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Oh, I've just been surfing the site while on the call.
So Terry, make sure you get back with the people that invited you, because you're probably just bursting with questions that we can answer. And Elaine, sorry about being evasive on that one answer, but we can stand together and we'll figure it out. And just remember that ultimately there's only two things that can heal you. One's the Lord because he made you. Number two is your body. And if we can get the signaling right in the body, it's got a better chance to get the job done.
Okay. And I would like to invite everybody to come and be with us on Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be focusing on endurance and recovery in your daily life. And we're going to have our guest speakers are going to be Marcia White and Dexter Yates. So it's one you won't want to miss. If you need to have the information to get to that, you can reach out to me or Marian or the person that invited you, and we'll get you that invitation. So thanks for being with us today.
It was a